Oh, okay. 50 Shades of Garfield! By Loodlelood again!
Everything
The subject, I love the subject. Kill me, please. 50 Shades of Please Fucking Kill Me. Garfield could restrain the passion of his loins no longer, and soon found himself Garfielding his Garfield. With Garfield filled with fire, and he looked passionately into Garfield's Garfield, grasping his lover's Garfield. Garfield sent waves of Garfield running through Garfield's body. Garfield pushed away from Garfield. Tangled into the moonlit midnight breeze. It's starred. It's shivering.
Oh my god.
You can't just expect us to Garfield. Not after what you Garfielded. Garfield seemed distant, uncaring even, and lurched forward once more towards Garfield, trying to resist. Garfield finally relented. Garfield was mystified and could not help but wish to explore the kinds of Garfield a Garfield could give. I never Garfielded a Garfield before. Positioning Garfield's Garfield at an angle, Garfield began to Garfield upwards. Garfield began to produce copious amounts of free Garfield. upon exposure, upon exposure to the welcoming Garfield, Garfielding with the might of Norse Garfield. Garfielded where no Garfield had gone before. I am the bone of my Garfield. Steel is my Garfield, and fire is my Garfield. And so I pray, unlimited Garfield works. Intoned Garfield, 1,000 Garfields erupted from his volcanic Garfield. Kill me, please. Do it while I can still feel I want to die human.
This is the best thing I've ever read, period.
Oh no! Wait, no! No! There are 2 more chapters! I long for death beyond Garfield. The sun set over the green fields of the Illinois town of Rockford, and Garfield looked over his Garfields with a melancholic expression. A deep feeling of regret swelled within his Garfield, and he could only look back on his better days of Garfielding with Garfield, now long past. His solemn reflection was interrupted by the unexpected arrival of a familiar Garfield. Garfield looked to his former friend. Garfield not stood to the sight
Oh
of
my
his
god.
dastardly Garfield, who had used Garfield's Garfield for his own Garfielding purposes. There was no respite for Garfield, not here. Garfield's eyes surrendered to his inner pain, and tears streaked down his masculine face. Garfield let out the years of the years of fear, pain, and insecurity that Garfield had put him through. Garfield, it would seem that you already assume your shock. All that Garfield could feel at the interruption was pure unadulterated shock. Garfield had never had it in him to defy Garfield in such a manner, but now he found Garfield fighting back with an unknown passion. The feelings fostered by years of abuse filled Garfield with a resolve he had never known, and he stood his ground. Garfield was taken aback why this development, and had planned a resuming his prior engagements with the lover, Garfield. I will never, I will never allow another to go through the hell that is a relationship with you. Nani? With tears flying off into the wind, Garfield prepared his Garfield and Garfield of Garfield's
Garfield's Garfield.
to
I'm gonna read.
Garfield. With a mighty crash of Garfield technique collided with Garfield, whose arms had adopted a cross-guard stance. The attack was great, but Garfield withstood the impact. But Garfield exploded with a burst of Garfield, and swirls of Garfield streaked across the air. The sunlight caught those wisps of Garfield, coloring them in the crimson and golden hues. Garfield flew backwards, grass staining his back, and he stood ready to deliver his own counterattack. Grasping his wrist, he focused his Garfield into his fist, now enveloped in a wrath of black Garfield. Garfield sprung at his foe. His Garfield-coated fist collided with the pure Garfield of Garfield's soul. From the clash of a great aura of Garfield spread to coat the land. The two lovers floated motionless in the Garfield space, and they were presented with a sight neither had seen in a long time. Their first meeting in the quiet mountain town all these years ago. They were younger then, and more open to their feelings. Their first time making Garfield on the shores of that cold lake, warmed only by their passion. What had changed the twist of their once pure love? They saw their first true embrace of that cold and sandy shore, and as the water touching the land began to frost over, they had not minded the cold, as their love burned hotter than any sun. How strange that even the purest of love could find itself broken by the patient withering of time. When this vision passes, Garfield found himself staring at the motionless form of Garfield. He walked along his lonesome path as tears of broken man streaked down his face.
This is the best thing I've ever read.
Chapter 3. Where the
What did I just
Garfield
walk
wind
into?
blows. Where the Garfield wind blows, I shall find him. I shall find him.
Garfielding Garfielding.
It had been 4 years since Garfielded Garfield after Garfield revealing himself to Garfield once more. Garfield's bitterness towards Garfield has grown into the Garfields they set apart. And these feelings drove Garfield to denounce the Garfield of Garfield. He had withstood Garfield's Garfield long enough, so he Garfielded back in his Garfield had Garfielded Garfield. It was something he would never be able to take back. Garfield now trekked across the desert wastes of Australia, his feet displacing the Garfield he stepped upon. The wind-swept sand was a fading sensation as the grains of Garfield dug into Garfield's Garfield, yet Garfield would endure. Garfield looked up towards the starry night sky, the array of Garfields shining brilliantly in the Garfield of the night. Garfield.
Oh, my lord.
Give me a second. Garfield nearly lost himself in their beauty, the beauty of celestial bodies that would forever cast their loving gaze upon the world, their brilliantly gleaming Garfields. and the Garfielded their Garfield upon the Garfield, upon which Garfielding back on the Garfield. The light of the Garfields was otherworldly. Their sickly green light shifted and twirled into shapes akin to the indescribable letters of some unknowable horror script. The winds whispered sweet Garfields to Garfields, sweet, sweet Garfields, which wrapped around the mind and heart and body and soul and life and death and Garfield, the uncounted Garfields that made up the Garfield shifter erratically. Garfield rolled his Garfields back into the sockets so that he Garfield gazed upon the Garfield that has taken root in the Garfield of life. Was as Garfield, and the Garfields on high above whispered the secrets of Garfield and Garfield, secrets telling of a Garfield born in the time before Garfield, back when Garfield was before time. But it was Garfield, always so. For once, there was a lone star drifting in a sea of song that played from the maw of unaccountable nothings. There were not the Garfields of the days after, whose song was sang in tones of Garfield, but rather the Garfields of Garfield before I saw on that mountain. People Garfield there's nothing out that can't be explained. If Garfield were true, then I would have Garfielded the only Garfield that I gave Garfield about me. I still have her. I still see her Garfielded in angles, Garfield when Garfield, and so there were never was one such as the false person who never was. I can't see her because she never was there. She was never there. She was never there. She was never there. I don't believe you don't. Garfield is the Garfield way. What Garfield sees as the Garfield do. Garfield is as Garfield was. Garfield was the Garfield true. There can't be stars where the light can't part where the light can't penetrate. There is a Garfield. I hear songs coming from the lake. They were beautiful without the context of thought. I just can't shake that feeling of hearing Garfield is the Garfield way. But Garfield sees as the Garfield do Garfield as is Garfield was the Garfield true. The genetic variation exhibited in the species may seem as through a miracle, but take into consideration two sheets of paper, both white, both square. Now imagine a strip is cut from both, strip A and strip B. Strip A as left as is, stayed on only by the passage of time. Then take strip B and imagine the individual cutting the strip giving to the strip an alteration. Let us say that this alteration is that it ripped the strip in two. Let us say that one half is folded into strange shapes that defy the 2D form, and that the other half is soaked in the being's blood and mashed into several strands and balls. These two, of course, are then combined into something that no longer resembles a sheet of paper. That is what it means to glimpse that which humanity was never meant to glimpse.
Holy fucking god! I hadn't
Why?
even I hadn't even read it before I sent it to you. I was assuming it would be good, and I was absolutely right.
I love it how he keeps reusing the word Garfield in every sentence.
That might be my favorite fan fiction of all time.